Welcome my friends, today I'm reviewing Samsung's Galaxy S23 after putting it through its paces. I thought it would be refreshing to take a deep look at a flagship phone for a change. The S23 is currently $400 less than the S23 Ultra, but it has the same processor and graphics performance. The battery life is surprisingly good, and we'll get into the screen on times I get with it. Software optimization and Samsung's One UI 5.1 have done a lot for this device, but there's also hardware improvements, and you'll see which ones stand out throughout this video. The main rear camera is now capable of recording 8K video at higher frames, 30 FPS, which is an upgrade from the S22's 24 frame per second limit. This makes videos taken handheld more pleasing to watch now. The S23 has a very similar display to the S22. The size is the same, so is the pixel density and the refresh rate, but this screen gets brighter. We can easily enable that full extra brightness in the display settings. While watching HDR content, this screen can get up to a peak of 1750 nits, which is impressive. This makes me really happy, along with the fact that the lowest brightness setting allows for comfortable viewing in the dark. It is my favorite smartphone display of any phone I've used to date, despite the specifications on paper. Samsung is no longer playing the spec comparison game. I mean, the display resolution of this phone is lower than the S20 from years ago. Instead, they're focusing on improvements that matter most to average consumers, like longer screen on times and the ability to drive that full 120Hz more efficiently. That includes for more graphically demanding games. This year, Samsung has improved the loudspeakers for the S23. Now it has noticeably clearer audio at the highest volume, as well as better bass presence. The S23 has an IP68 water resistance rating, a tougher aluminum frame, and Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on both sides. In the few weeks I've used it, I have not dropped this phone yet, thankfully, but I have seen some drop test videos, and it looks promising as to Corning's new glass technology here, preventing cracks on impact. When I got this phone, I inputted my fingerprints for the on-screen ultrasonic sensor and my face scan for the face-registered unlock. Both work very well, and the accuracy of these biometric scans are 10 out of 10 when it's done optimally with the right positioning. One thing that made me really happy to see is that Samsung is using Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Generation 2 on all models of the S23, so no more variant differences between the North American and European models. Regardless of where you are in the world, the S23 is coming to you with a Qualcomm chip, which is essentially an overclocked version of last year's Snapdragon 8. Benchmark tests show this processor and graphics card having significantly better performance than the previous generation of Snapdragon chips. You will not be able to tell the differences between this and the predecessor when it comes to app load-up times. The previous chip was already tremendously fast at that. What you will notice here is better performance when the chip has been under stress for around half an hour. Long gaming sessions will show this difference best, and the S23 will provide a noticeably better experience. That's not to say it's a night and day drastic difference, but side by side with the predecessor, you can tell. This phone will also be less warm to the touch. In many aspects, the Galaxy S23 is outperforming the iPhone 14 Pro, and gaming is one of those aspects. In fact, the only phone that is currently better than the S23 at gaming is ZTE's Red Magic 8 Pro. That is a dedicated gaming phone with a cooling fan inside of it, and it's thick. What Samsung's pulled off here with the S23's Qualcomm chips is even more impressive when you consider the battery screen on times. The battery size is 3,900 mAh. Now, despite that small size, it still gives me 8 to 8.5 hours of screen on time. This is with dark mode periodically turned on, but Wi-Fi, data connection, and the adaptive high refresh rate are enabled during my use. When I use a flagship phone, I intend on pushing its limits, so therefore I enabled the highest graphics options in the games I played, and yet I can still make it to the end of the day comfortably. If my intent was to make it to the end of the second day on a single charge, this would be possible with the battery saving features in the game booster as well as the battery settings. That would also require lowering the refresh rate down to standard mode. Compared to the previous years of Galaxy S series base model phones, this battery performance is impressive. They've sourced better quality battery cells, and the new Qualcomm chip is very power efficient. Android 13 and One UI do their part for allowing quick battery adjustments to be made, and they actually work well now. In case you're curious, the charging time from 0 to 100% is 1 hour and 17 minutes. Not bad. As for memory, 8GB is more than adequate for any uses I have personally, right now and also going forward into the foreseeable future. We have not seen any AI applications or even augmented reality apps that would require more memory, so from a future-proofing aspect, I see no reason why 12GB would be essential. Hence why I bought this S23 over the S23 Plus that had more RAM. What I recommend is going for the 256GB storage capacity model. This has the added benefit of faster read and write speeds, The base 128GB is UFS 3.1 speed, and the higher capacity models are UFS 4. The read speeds of UFS 4 are only marginally faster in day-to-day use. The write speed is significantly faster, and that makes the price difference between the two storage models justified, in my opinion. So now, let's talk about the cameras. This is another aspect that may make you interested in upgrading to the S23. In this segment, I'm also going to explain why I bought this S23 over the S23 Ultra. This phone's 3 rear cameras covers all the potential smartphone image and video needs I have. The ultrawide camera, which is the top lens, is 12 megapixels. The ultrawide images are detailed and they have great colors. If you ask me, this ultrawide camera is more usable than what we have on the iPhone. The telephoto lens is 10 megapixels. It's a 3 times optically zoomed and optically stabilized camera with great detail. And again, both the colors as well as the dynamic range always come out nice. I have no use for optical zoom above the range of 3 times. Now, 10 times is cool to show off if you're an S23 Ultra owner, but it's not a lens I would call highly practical, whereas 3 times on here is. The main camera is 50 megapixels. As you would expect, it's optically stabilized, and Samsung has done an excellent job with making handheld footage usable. In the full 50 megapixel image capture mode, this phone still takes quite a while to save photos and process them. There is definitely still room for improvement in that regard, because as of now, we can't spam the shutter button and capture full-size images back to back. Image processing has improved for night photos, but again, it takes a lot of time. These main camera images consistently turn out with great sharpness, even on the regular 3x4 mode. Dynamic range is a highlight too. As we've come to expect from Samsung phones, color vibrancy is very strong, perhaps slightly oversaturated, but they look nice in my opinion. We can take raw images with the S23, by the way, and it has a wide array of built-in camera features. The front camera is a wide 12 megapixel lens. It is slightly improved this year, and the selfies that come out from it are great. Getting back to the video capability of this phone, the main lens records 4K at 60 frames per second and 1080p at up to 960 frames per second. That is for super slow motion capture. This selfie cam can record 4K video at 60 frames per second as well. I have only positive things to say about videos shot on this phone. Audio quality from the microphone sounds good, and if you want to, you can record portrait blur videos, in case your subject's background is not ideal. Just like on the iPhone, while recording a video in the camera app, we can switch between lenses, which is really useful. And as you'd expect, we can switch to the front camera lens as well, without pausing a recording. The lens switching features are not available when your video recording is set to 8K. I believe the phone is capable of doing so, especially considering the read and write speeds of UFS 4 here. The 8K video recording will drain your battery quite fast, by the way. Pushing that higher 8K video bitrate recording at the same time as switching to the 4K for the front camera could eventually be possible with a software update. We shall see. Speaking of software updates, Samsung has stated that they're committing to 4 years of updating their software and 5 years for security patch updates. This means that we should expect to get software security until 2028. On an interesting note, completely aside from what we were just talking about, the phone flashlight is blindingly bright. I can't imagine anyone needing a brighter phone flashlight, so props to Samsung for making that happen. They've done a lot of things right here with the flagships this year, such as unifying the S23 series, all having Qualcomm chips. The rear camera video recording is a solid step up, so is the quality of the selfie camera, and now we get good battery life. My only major complaint is about the packaging. Samsung is not respecting your $800 by giving you only a charging cable and a SIM card tool. The wall adapter does not come with it. These are the same accessories that come with a phone that's a quarter of the price. I still expect the essentials to come with a phone when I'm paying this much money, but I'm curious what you think about this because Samsung has removed it from the box for a while now. If you want my honest opinion, the Galaxy S flagships are not the kind of phones that I recommend you upgrade every year. If you have the S22 or the S21, I personally believe it is not a justified upgrade for an outright purchase. If you happen to be coming from an older device, like a Pixel device or an iPhone from 2020 or earlier, I think this would be a nice upgrade for you. If your budget is now expanded enough to include the S23 and you use the smartphone camera a lot and often, then I would say this is going to be a really good purchase for you and you're going to be happy with the S23. I don't use my smartphone often enough for video recording to justify the $800 price, and because of that, I don't complain about the experiences I have using a budget phone. That's just me though, and I hope I've made this video worth your time by spending my money on this phone to bring you a real review. I'll be back this week with that $200 phone I mentioned because I want to tell you more about the smartphone market, especially on the budget side of things for this year. It's looking good. I'll see you then, my friends.